and welcome inside our Citrus TV studios. Braden Reed here, and I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, you're the guy whose name used to be on those little credit pugs at the bottom of the screen at the end of the show, right? Well, it's true. I used to be the one behind the scenes, but it's in better hands now. Jordan Leonard, Ethan Frank. Here I am behind the desk to give you my picks in a great college football slate this weekend. But before we get to some of those, congratulations are in order. Give it up for Steven Scolar. $45 in profit last week. Only went 4-5 overall, but a parlay of Purdue to win, Penn State to cover, and Bama to cover netted him close to 60 beans. Steven, fantastic work as always. I'll do my best to fill those shoes today. Before we get to my picks, though, we'll take a quick look at how everyone else has done so far this semester. Only 4 people to talk about. Steven Scolar up there with $45. Jesse Cook making $5, and Ben Spector, Joe Puccio, disappointing as always. Showdown $31 so far this semester. I'm going to got some work to do to get BTB out of the gutter. With that, let's get into my picks, the big games of the week. And could you pick a better place to start today than the Cotton Bowl, the Red River Showdown, Texas and OU? There's few games on the calendar that hold the weight that this one does. Even more so this year. The Horns at number 3 in the poll, their highest rank since 2009. REP Ethan Frank hadn't even been bar mitzvahed yet. The Sooners a respectable number 12, getting 5.5 in this one. But if you know me at all, talk to me at all this year, you know how high I've been on the Longhorns all year long. Texas is going to cover. I almost said a B word, didn't say it. This coming from a guy who couldn't stand them in the Sam Ehlinger years. Took some time under Sark to find their identity, but I think this is finally the year that UT finds their way to the playoff. Oklahoma, just another team in the way of that. Texas won this game 49-0 last year too. I'm going heavy early, $20 on Texas to cover. We go now to Athens, where top-ranked Georgia hosts number 20 Kentucky. The Dogs favored by 14.5 here, more than 2 touchdowns. I think that's way too heavy. I'm going to take the Wildcats to cover 10.5 here. A little bit of an alternate line at plus 134, so some better money there. Look, I understand the love for Georgia. We're going on 22 months since they've lost a football game, all the way back to Alabama, the SEC championship game 2 years ago. We have to look at just this year. Georgia has not been the same team. Blaming on all of their best players getting snatched up by my Philadelphia Eagles, I certainly would. But this team just snuck one out against Auburn, let South Carolina hang around for a while too. Now they're taking on Kentucky, who just went ballistic on the ground against Florida last week. I think the Wildcats drag this game out on the ground. The total ends up being low too, and while they might not win it, I like them to keep it close. $15 on that alternate line of 10.5. For our final big game of the week, we'll go to Notre Dame at Louisville. The Cardinals unblemished. Notre Dame, the one loss to Ohio State, with then the close win at Duke last week. The Irish favored by 6 and the hook here. And folks, say it with me, we all know it. Good teams win, great teams cover, and that's exactly what ND has done this season. 3-1-1 against the spread, 2-0 on the road, like I said. Barely snuck it out against Duke last week, but a cover's a cover any way you dice it. Sam Hartman yet to throw a pick so far this season, and for a middling Louisville secondary, I think he keeps that streak going. I've got Notre Dame going on the road and covering the 6.5, another $15 down on that one. We'll look now at what our producers think. I'm terrified. That's a great hat. Hook 'em horns. I've been saying it all year. Fantastic picture. They agree with me on Texas. We love to see that. They're taking Georgia to cover that alternate line of 10.5. Notre Dame, they also have 6.5, but 5-6-1 on the year. Hosts so far 7-4-1. All love to the hosts. Now moving on to my picks this week, and it's a day that ends in Y, so I'm skeptical of LSU covering a spread. Taking on Mizzou, and I like the Tigers to cover in this one. I guess that doesn't really narrow it down. Neither would saying I like the team with the yellow tiger. All right, I'm taking Missouri to cover the 4.5 in this one. The Brian Kelly Express has yet to get chugging. A disappointing 10-4 season last year, a bowl win, but expectations are just sky high when your coach makes the jump from South Bend down to Baton Rouge. And this year hasn't been better. Losses to FSU and Ole Miss, now their 3rd-ranked game of the season. Jaden Daniels has been fantastic back there at quarterback for LSU, but just hasn't gotten any help on the defensive end. Transfer corner Deuce Chestnut away from the team now. It's a mess. It's classic LSU. It's classic Brian Kelly, as we've seen so far. $10 on Missouri to cover here. Let's move over to the Pac-12 now, the conference in its twilight, becoming the Pac-2. Who knows what happens? But man, they still now know how to put up points out there on the West Coast. USC and Arizona this week, the total at an astronomical 71.5, and I'm doing it. I'm taking the over for $10. I know you're looking at me saying, are you a sicko? Yeah, a little. I mean, what can I say? I like points, sue me. The Trojans, the top scoring offense in the country this year, more than 53 points per game. Arizona just gave Washington a game last week, too. We saw how USC almost let Colorado back into that game, too. This game could end up being a shootout that goes down to the wire. And who doesn't like watching Caleb Williams put up points? Even if USC, Arizona don't hit the over, I'm going to have fun watching them try. So $10 down on the over in that one. And for my dog of the week, we'll go from one extreme to another. Let's look at Purdue and Iowa. I know, I just heard your groan through the screen, and yeah, I'm with you. The total 39.5 points here, yuck. But I'm going with just the outright pick, not touching the total. I like the Boilermakers to win this game. Coming off a win over Illinois where their offense looked like it might finally be hitting its stride. The Hawkeyes without Cade McNamara now for the rest of the season. It's going to be sloppy, it's going to be ugly, but I like Purdue, Pete, and company to move back to 500 this year, $10 down on that one. For my last football bet of the day, we'll throw a little parlay onto the ticket. If you were tuned in to Live CC last week, which why wouldn't you be? I gave out a winner, hoping to do the same for you here on Beat the Bookie. I've got Michigan to cover 18.5 against Minnesota. J.J. McCarthy has looked phenomenal this season. Bama to cover 1.5 against Texas A&M. I know it's been a weird year for the Tide. They've struggled against the Aggies in the past, most recently, but I think they right the ship here. In the third leg, UNC minus 9.5 against Syracuse. Tar Heel wideout Tez Walker granted eligibility earlier this week, and that is bad news for a struggling Orange secondary. 10 doubloons on this parlay to win you more than 60. Some good value there in three games I feel great about. And for my future now, let's look to the MLB postseason. Such a fun time of year. As much as I'd like to pick a certain baseball team that wears red in the NLDS, Diamondbacks or Phillies, who knows which, who's to say? I have a strict rule to never bet on teams that I'm a fan of personally, so I'll look over to the American League here. I'm putting $10 down on a prop for the Astros and Orioles to meet in the ALCS. It's chalky, I get it, but these are two wagons of a baseball teams. The Stros coming off the World Series last year, of course. The O's finally putting the pieces together, winning the second most games in all of baseball this season. This would be an absolutely awesome ALCS, so I'll sprinkle a bit on it happening for my last bet. We'll look at all of my bets here. That'll do it for my picks, so let's review. I've got Texas minus 5.5. Horns up as always, looking at Notre Dame to win by more than a touchdown. Missouri to cover the 4.5 as well. Moving on, the USC and Arizona total. Gotta love it, the parlay there. Michigan, Bama, and UNC. And that will do it for me. 10 my bets, all at your own risk. I personally would, though, if I were you. For our producers, Ethan Frank and Jordan Leonard, I'm Braden Reed saying so long. Enjoy the games this week. Please bet responsibly. And as always, hook 'em.